I'm gonna have to restart this machine. We having issues here. Well, we can hear. Yeah, you good. Yeah. Let's do this. I don't like this setup. Okay, you know what? We're good to go. We're good to go. I see it. Yes, sir. Yeah, 3 times.
Good evening, everybody. I would like to welcome you to the Nash County School Board of Education Committee Meetings. We have a full agenda for tonight, so I'm going to ask that the committee chairs have their agenda items ready to run with that. And I will start out with the Administrative Service and Operations Committee meeting, which I chair. And the first item on the agenda, I'm going to have a roll call first, please. So, roll call for those on the committee. Mike Duncan. Here. Frank Lamb. Yes. Sharonda Bullock. Don Chase. Here. Joe Sharp's here. We have a full agenda, full committee here tonight, so great. Again, I'd like to welcome our board members, good to see everybody around the side once again. So the first item on the agenda, and we have is the Census Redistricting. I first of all want to thank Adam and Bill for doing an outstanding job for what you guys did with the with going out inside the district, sharing with the district and finding out the voice of the people. So if you guys would come down and share with us, we greatly appreciate it.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to see you all again. I want to quickly summarize your public engagement sessions. If you remember, we presented the maps, and as the chair said, you asked us to go out in the community and talk and listen to folks. And so we did that two ways. One was electronic, and I have to say, your staff, Dr. Ellis, and the communications team was outstanding to work with. They built a landing page off the school system's main webpage that had maps, presentations, data. They also had an online comment card, which I'll run through in just a second. And then we had two in-person sessions at Southern Nash High School and Central Nash High School. Go through those in just a minute as well. So online, there were 8 comments received in total, and I emailed them all to you earlier today. One favored Plan B, and that commenter said that he or she liked the idea of accounting for future growth, which is something that we've talked about a number of times. And the other 7 comments favored Plan A, and they pretty consistently said that they favored that because it was the closest to the current districts and would promote stability. So those were the online comments. In person, we had 2 citizens come to the first session. There were also several board members as well as staff. And Bill and I gave our presentation. We had paper maps available, large paper maps, and it was broadcast on Zoom. During the question and answer period at that first session, I would say there were not substantive comments and questions. There were questions about timing and when the board might meet again and discuss this, but there really wasn't anything about the plans. At the second session at Central Nash, there were 7 citizens in attendance, and I would say there was 1 substantive comment / conversation, and that commenter favored Plan A slightly over Plan B. She said that Plan B would also be acceptable, and I would say it was a similar rationale, stability, and this commenter expressed concerns that Plan C would divide communities of interest and would dilute voting strength amongst African American voters and would detach communities in Nash and Edgecombe sort of on the border in a way that this speaker did not favor. So that's what we heard. And while it wasn't an overwhelming turnout, people did come out and people did comment, and we certainly appreciate that, and certainly appreciate that you asked us to do so. So that is what we heard, and I think at this point, you all need to discuss, debate. You can do that either now or at your next meeting, but I think the chair's hope and my hope as well is that at the next meeting, you actually take a formal vote to adopt the plan. Ideally, you could reach preliminary consensus today so that Bill and I would know what to include in the resolution that you'll approve at the next meeting. So that's really all I wanted to cover. Happy to answer any questions as you discuss.
Thank you, Adam. Really appreciate that. As Adam alluded to, I thought within this committee, between us folks serving this committee, we could come up with a resolution or come up with an idea as far as what we want to bring to the board, full board for recommendation. And so I'm going to ask that if you guys, actually starting with the committee members first, if you guys got any questions that you want to ask Adam or Bill, feel free to do so. And then hopefully what I would like to do is actually entertain a motion to actually accept one of these plans or to present to the full board for voting on Monday night. So the floor is open to Mr. Lamb, Ms. Bullock, Mr. Dutton, and Ms. Chavis. And then if you guys don't have any questions, any other board members who have questions regarding what the findings are, please feel free to do so. Yes, sir. Oh, stand up wrong. Any board members have any questions regarding the, I'll start talking this conversation. As I actually like the plans A and B, they're so similar as you look to dive into the numbers. I think what I really like though about, while A maintains continuity, consistency with it, and B just veers just a little bit, but what I really like about B is future growth. What you found about future growth within inside our community. And as you look through that, you see a huge growing opportunity on the southern end. We see a little bit of growing opportunity this side the Rocky Mount area, but I think we need to consider that. So as far as when we look at making the decision where we want to go, what map we want to present to the full board, I think we need to make that decision with that. Again, I looked at those and I like the public comments were saying we got the voice of the customer, which was our people inside the district. On both ends or both sections of the district, southern end as well as inside the city. And I think Bill and Adam did an outstanding job as far as presenting the information. And hats off to the technology team, as Adam talked about, because I was online on Nash Central, Nash Central, not Central Nash Central High School. So I was online with Nash Central and I enjoyed the comments. I enjoyed the interaction at the end of the meetings as far as people that would go online and actually you guys showed them how to work those maps. So it was great. Any other comments or questions?
Just in light of what you just said, so the census is going to come up in 10 years. We're going to have
8 years now.
8 years now. And that is what is going to drive whether we're within that 5% parameter or not. I mean, is it? I know it's our responsibility to make these based on our decisions, but is it our responsibility to allow for that growth, knowing that the census is basically going to be that in 8 years?
It's definitely not legally required. So you do not have to. And what you have to do is get within plus or minus 5% now. And so it's just an option, the theory being, can we do our best to predict so that 10 years or 8 years from now, whatever that is, perhaps we'll still be in bounds, or if we're out, less so. But no, it is not required.
And I think, Mr. Dunn, as far as Mr. Adam was talking about, was basically just being proactive. Yeah. So hopefully we'll be in balance when the next issue come out and we don't get that to do. Wow. Chair recognize Ms. Bull.
Thank you. I like both A and B. I think though that because this board would have to revisit this in 8 years from now, I think it would be good if we adopt A because of the information that we have before us and the state of things right now. I think B gives us information, but I think B gives us information for the future to see what it looks like. But I think A is more practical.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that as a committee, we recommend to the full board next week, option A.
Second.
Okay, thank you. It's been properly moved by Mr. Dunn, second by Ms. Sharonda Bullock. Any other questions or discussions? Hearing none. Roll call vote, Franklin Lamb.
Hey,
Sharonda Bullock. Lance Dutton. Donald Taylor. Bill Sharp. A here. So we will bring to the full board next week, recommendations for A for our, redistricting.
great, thank you.
Thank you guys, appreciate that. Next item on the agenda is the sale of the Old Rocky Mount Baseball Stadium, Mr. Shannon Davis. I'm gonna ask, Shannon if he come forward. One of the things that we had a lot of discussion around this, one of the things that I want us to do is actually walk through that process. Tell us, Mr. Davis, Mr. Malone, the process and requirements, what's the policy with that process?
Sure, good afternoon. I'm also going to ask Mr. Malone if he will jump in if I happen to miss step in this, but the upset bid process is the process our board has adopted. We've sold several properties since I have been employed with the district. All have been used, the upset bid process. It's the 10-day upset bid process. And what normally happens is, they select a minimum starting bid, which was $60,000 in this case. The board voted to approve that and start a 10-day process. We advertise that in the paper. You have 10 days to bid on it. The closing at a certain time on the 10th day. Once a person bids, it automatically resets another advertisement period and another 10-day process. You can have one or more bids in a 10-day process. It depends upon how quickly bidders want to propel, I guess, or get the numbers higher as quick as possible and not drag it out. So once we have a 10-day process where no one bids, then the previous bidder wins. It's a fairly simple process. We use a 10-day, that's what the board approved, and that's the process that we use. Mr. Malone, I'm not sure if there's anything else you want to add as far as the process.
The only thing I would add is that this is a very open process. It's all open book. It's unlike most bidding where, you get sealed envelopes. This is all open book. So it could not be any more open and transparent, a process used.
Are there any questions? Okay, and like Mr. Malone said, this process is probably one of the more open processes that a district could use as far as everyone knowing what the numbers are. They're emailed out. We did in this case. It's not mandatory that we did because we had several groups that were interested up front, but the process was very open.
I have a question. In the process, did we document closely the dates that we received notices for the bids or changes in those bids?
Emails, that is not mandatory on the 10-day. It's really not up to the employees, but in this case, when we had a change, there were emails sent out when an upset had taken place, but that is not mandatory to the process.
So I'm saying if I made a bid, you're noting precisely
Yes, ma'am.
the date and time.
Yep, all of that is receipt and stamped. Yep. Yes, ma'am.
And, following along with that, when changes were made, were all parties emailed so that like everybody's in the loop at the same time?
There was an email tree set up with interested parties who were bidding.
So all bidders received the same information at the same time?
Yes, ma'am.
What's the board's responsibility? What do you mean the board? What's the board's responsibility when it comes to this bidding process? To wait for staff to come to you now and tell you that they finished the process and that they've got a high number and that they're recommending that the board sell it to the highest number. Does the board have responsibility? Is it out of the realm of the board responsibility to communicate with the public? So I guess I'll answer it this way. I mean, obviously, a board member has received some community concern about interaction with the city of Rocky Mount and encouraging the city to participate. It will be my position that board members are free to encourage anybody to participate in the process and arguably have a fiduciary obligation to the board to encourage participation and to try to get the highest possible bid. So I see no problems with a board member or more engaging in any attempts to get the public excited about bidding on a piece of property that the board is selling. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Davis. At this point in time, we will have a request by Coach Maiden to come and speak to the board. So we will allocate Coach Maiden to come, allocate 15 minutes for him to present his information.
Thank you for this opportunity for this board. First of all, for full disclosure, I want to start off by saying I am in receipt of a correspondence from the board attorney, Mr. Rob Malone, dated January 6, 2022. It's a follow-up regarding my corresponding with him that I'll address later on down the road. Question if the city bid was legit, considering there was possible conflict of interest. We'll address that a little bit down the road, but in that response, he also brought up the fact that we had a check that was returned. And it said, to read in part of that correspondence, the board would not be able to award a contract to your group to purchase the property based upon your $60,000 because your $3,000 deposit was returned for insufficient funds. And he went on, for the sake of time, to say that we would have to resubmit our bid in order for to be considered. And in the handouts you have, if you look at Exhibit 3, it is a bid for $66,000, which he outlined in this correspondence that needs to be done, or the deposit required, and it's by a certified check. So for the record, I want to let you know that I had no prior knowledge that there was an issue with our payment. I learned for the first time on a Thursday evening when I was in Chicago. I was reached out to join a conference call with a collection agency representing the city, representing the Nash County School Board. We reached out to the bank, had some dialogue back and forth, and afterwards, that matter was resolved on that next day, that Friday. These funds were returned to the Nash County school system and is still in their possession to this day, including the additional payment that you have there. We've never received that. And I conducted a follow-up review on my part to find out how this happened. Seeing that we were non-local and we had a local person to make this payment on our behalf to the Nash County School Board. I was informed that the account that these funds were drawn off required that the bank to contact that person before they released any funds. And apparently the bank did not trigger that mechanism. But whatever the case was, I want to be clearly understood. I informed that party that was unacceptable, that was unprofessional, and it should not have happened. That's business, and business is not conducted that way. And I want to apologize to this board for that happening on behalf of myself and our entire organization. With that being said, for full disclosure, I'm going to begin my opening statements. I'm going to present to this body today, and I'm going to say I come because we've been irreparably harmed by the transactions and the irresponsibility that is taking place by this board, and by people on this board, or let me re-say, handling this bidding process. Because the board had no knowledge of it, and that's why I'm here to bring it to you. And we're looking for the board to make us whole, to resolve the issues of concern. We're going to point them out step by step, and we're going to lay a timeline for a number of events, and we're going to present the following documents along the way. But I'm going to present a timeline for you starting from the very first day on June 7, 2021, until this very date, which will allow you to clearly understand the grievance that we're filing before this board. On June 7, 2021, Willie Arrington came before this Nash County School Board, representing Future Entrepreneurs of America. He requested that the baseball field be leased to us for 5 years with the option to buy. Ms. Arrington reached out to me 2 days later and told me that I need to get down here because the lawyer wanted to discuss selling the baseball field. I got a flight on 2-day notice, and I was here in the city of Rocky Mount. Present at this meeting in this very room that we're in right now was the superintendent, Shannon Davis, and Rob Malone, representing the school board. Representing us was myself, Mr. Willie Arrington, and Glenn Draw. During that meeting, they informed us that they did not want to lease the baseball field, and I'm sharing this because this information was never publicly displayed to you as the board, and you can affirm that as I present it to you. So I want you to get a clear understanding of this whole picture from start to finish. During that meeting, they informed us that they did not want to lease the baseball field to us. They wanted to sell it to us because they did not want to assume the liability that would come with leasing the baseball field to us. Conversation did turn to selling the baseball field to us, coming up with a fair market price. So it's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Eventually, we agreed upon $70,000. Now the conversation turned to the payment options, which was presented to us that we can make payments to the school board. That was made in this room by those parties that was here, the superintendent, the council, and Shannon Davis, that we can make payments to the school board over time. And it was presented to us that there was no set time to pay for it. Whether it be a day, a year, or years. Whatever works best for us. Mr. Rob Malone stated that the school board just wanted to sell the property and get it off the books and be done with the liability. Then the conversation shifted to selling the property. The best route to sell the property to us. It was agreed upon to sell it to us under the Historic Preservation Act, which would allow the school board to sell us this as a private transaction and would not have to go through the bidding process. We were told by Mr. Malone, the board's attorney, in order for this transaction to be completed, we had to be a non-profit organization and include our bylaws that we would preserve the land in compliance with the statute. You had that as said before. This is a copy of our bylaws where it was amended. Exhibit 4, line 5, the last one. On June 15th, this meeting took place on June 10th. On June 15th, 5 days later, Mr. Malone, the board's attorney, followed up with an email. You have that in Exhibit 6. He followed up with an email to us, affirming the plans for the property to be sold to us as a private transaction, which reads in part, in order to move forward, I think it would be great if you could send us an email outlining the proposal. The email should include the fact that you will establish a non-for-profit corporation, which we have been a non-for-profit corporation, Future Entrepreneurs, since 2007 in the state of Illinois. We amended that to be a non-for-profit officially licensed to operate in North Carolina, and you have that information before you as Exhibit 6. The proposal, again, according to Mr. Malone's email, the proposal should state the $70,000 to purchase the property and the payment terms. That's what he said. That's Exhibit 7. On Exhibit 7, on June 25, 10 days later, we submitted the information to Mr. Malone that he requested regarding the sale of this property under the Historic Preservation Act, which included the terms of the sale, the amount, and so on and so forth, from our lawyer who sent it to him. At no time, and this is where I want to really, this is the whole point that I'm going to, because at no time during this entire process did Mr. Malone nor the superintendent present to this full Nash County School Board that that was the option that was presented to us, Future Entrepreneurs, by them to buy this under the Historic Preservation Act. That was what was presented to us. And because this information was never clearly presented to this board, this lack of communication to the board opened the doors for mass chaos and confusion during the September, October, November, and December board meetings regarding the process required that the property must be sold through the upset bid process. It opened the door for mass confusion, which only led to more confusion when we were repeatedly submitting our requests, Exhibit 8, in the October, November, and December board meeting to buy this property under the Historic Preservation Act for $60,000 to be paid within 10 days. I'm sure y'all recall that coming before y'all. This is why we kept repeatedly throwing it back to you guys, because that was what was presented to us, and it was never explained to us. And I'm sure this may have caused some board members to question our character and our integrity, and to leave some wondering if we really were serious about buying this property. Being in a leadership role, I know when you question somebody's integrity and you lost confidence in them, anything they say don't mean anything, but you were not fully made aware of the whole story. And it even led to the question if we really had the money to pay for this property. I'm sure some of y'all thought that. And again, this only led to more chaos regarding using the upset bid process, extended month after month after month. We feel very strongly if the selling of this property to future entrepreneurs of America, the Historic Preservation Act was properly presented to this full board under the Historic Preservation Act, it would have been accepted and agreed to. This process would have been completed. If this board was made aware that the leadership had made this offer proposal, I'm sure the board would have been more receptive to accept the request under the Historic Preservation Act. But because it was never conveyed, the impression was these guys trying to make up their own rules. We was only acting on what was informed with us. Now let me move on to my second grievance that I have before this board, which is a conflict of interest. On December 22nd, 2021, I reached out to the board's attorney, Mr. Malone, expressing my concerns regarding a potential conflict of interest by a school board member. Requested a meeting in closed session. Exhibit 9 in your handout. In part, it reads, this correspondence serves as an official request for an emergency meeting. This is from me to the board's attorney with the Nash County School Board after the holiday break. Behind closed doors in executive session, it has been brought to our attention that the bidding process may have been illegally compromised and conflict of interest laws may have been violated. Exhibit 10, Mr. Long response to my correspondence on December 23rd, 2021. Mr. Long reads, reply, I read in part. Please note that North Carolina open meeting laws do not allow the Board of Education to go into closed session to discuss any allegations against a board member. Those allegations will need to be discussed in open session. This led to a phone call from me to the board's attorney, Mr. Malone. Mr. Malone, regarding this matter, he knew who this board member was in question. He invoked the name of that board member to me. Note in that correspondence that I sent him, it said a board member, that mentioned his name. He invoked the name. And he said, and I quote, that board member is Bill Sharp. It's no secret to others on the board that Bill Sharp has been soliciting the city to buy the baseball field, end of quote. Mr. Malone went on to say, quote, Bill Sharp approached me and told me that he was going after the city to bid on the baseball field, end of quote. Mr. Malone, your board's attorney, informed me, quote, I told Bill that it was okay with me seeing that no one else had bid on the property, end of quote. For the record, although no official bid had been made by Future Entrepreneurs of America at this time, we have submitted an offer, an official proposal during this meeting on June 10, 2021, Exhibit 7 and 8. Mr. Malone on words. The proposal should include should state the $70,000 you offer to purchase the property and any payment terms. October 10 through 21, board meetings, Exhibit 8. This correspondence is to inform you that we are prepared to pay $60,000 within 10 days for the baseball field. Mr. Malone and the board counsel informed me that he told Mr. Sharp that it was okay with him going after the city, seeing that there were no other bids on the property. Yet a proposal was on the table by future entrepreneurs. On January 6, 2022, I again forwarded correspondence to the board's attorney, Mr. Malone. Mr. Malone to Mr. Malone, expressing my concern that a board member my concerns questionable, Mr. Malone expressing my concerns about questionable activities and requested that the city bid be rejected. That's what that original opening that I made, that was tied into this part now. Exhibit 11 reads, this correspondence is to serve as the official objection to the upset bid process for the Rocky Mountain baseball field being triggered to a second round of bidding under the belief that the bid submitted on December 7, 2021 by the city of Rocky Mountain may have been compromised with potential conflict of interest when Bill Shaw, vice chair of the 5th District, a sitting Nash County school board member, actively engaged Rocky Mountain officials and other participants in the bidding process, causing the bid for the city of Rocky Mountain to be tainted and possibly open for legal review. And I want you to hear this part very clearly, because Exhibit 12, coming from the board's attorney, Mr. Rob Malone, it says, as we discussed it is not a conflict of interest for a member of the Nash County Board of Education to solicit bids from the city of Rocky Mountain or any other person or entity during a publicly advertised bid process. And he just stated that up here just a few minutes ago. All board members are free to use additional efforts to solicit bids from the public during any public process, bid process. Mr. Malone replied on January 6th, it is not a conflict of interest for a member of the Nash County Board of Education to solicit bids from the city of Rocky Mountain or any other person or entity. The key word here that the lawyer should know, during a publicly advertised upset bid process. And I repeat, during a publicly advertised upset bid process. For the record, it should be duly noted that these questionable activities took place during September, October, and November, and December. At the point in time in question where there was no public advertisement for this upset bid in the public domain. At the time in question, there was no public, but he said that it's okay during a publicly advertised bid. The first bid did not post in the public domain until December 10th. If so, please produce the record. Again, no public advertisement regarding the sale of the Rocky Mountain baseball field went out on or before December 10th, 2021. Now, for the record, in September and October, we started getting word that a Nash County school board member, Mr. Bill Shaw, was soliciting individuals to purchase the baseball field. In October, while at my brother's house in Chicago, who was on home hospice, I received a phone call to join, which Councilman Richard Joyner was one of the parties on the call. The councilman informed us that this current sitting board member, Bill Shaw, had approached him again and again regarding the purchasing of the baseball field. We were informed by Councilman T.J. Walker that the city had no interest in purchasing the baseball field. If I could request more time from the board to complete this, I think there's some very, very crucial points to come out within the next 5 minutes.
Board members, I will allow the board to make a decision as far as they want to continue with this process. How much time do you want?
About 5 to 7 minutes.
5? 5, okay? 5? 5 minutes, please.
Thank you. So skipping ahead, moving along, in addition, he reached out to the city councilman, Andre McKnight, Ruben Blackwell, and Richard Joyner about being given the opportunity to address the full board to buy the full council about buying the city. They told him no. Yeah, I gotta skip ahead for time's sake. I'm gonna move on to the next issue. The city has dropped out of the bid during a Zoom call which you have a chance to consider 15. We were never notified that the city was dropped out of the bidding, which would have left at that time Free Entrepreneurs that's only valid bidder left. So by default, if the city was dropping out, and you have the transcript, and I actually have the audio of it too, telling you that that's the city 15, there was no one left in the race. We should have been awarded the property, it should have been over. Again, because I'm running against time. I can't get all the points in, but we were tempted to place a bid to upset the city bid on December, that payment on, you have in front of you, December 3, on December 21st, the deadline. When we came before the board on December 21st, the deadline, Shannon Davis denied us the opportunity to put the bid in. He told us the city had put in an upset bid, which is how we found out the city had put in. We had to wait to after the holiday when the next bidding round started to put our bid in. If we would have been allowed to put that bid in within 30 minutes later, the bidding would have closed, it would have been over. And we were met by human resource person who reached out to Ms. Lamb and Miss, I can't think of her name right now, what's her young lady? Braswell. And she was not available, so he reached out to Shannon Davis, and I talked to Shannon Davis person on the phone. But again, I gotta move on for my closer. The city bid. We reached out to the Freedom of Information Act requesting from Shannon Davis the documentation verifying that these bids were received at the appropriate time, and we never got a response. We did that same Freedom of Information Act to the city. The city replied, again, moving fast. We have a copy of the city's payment to the city of Rocky Mountain for their bid in the amount of $63,000. Check number 292747 was just paid by a check from the city of Rocky Mountain. You have it there as Exhibit 21, along with other attachments from the city. According to the statute, the city bid is invalid. The city must have to pay by check and or cash, and they paid, I'm sorry, cashier's check or cash and security payment. It's a check. So therefore, at that point, the city bid should have been disqualified and see only 2 bidders was in there. It was us and the city. By default, the bid should have went to us, but because procedure properly not followed, the bidding process was allowed to continue. And on February 7th, the next date, the bid came in. The board should validate those bids, if any bids came in after February 7th, because at the end of the day, there was only 1 bid left from start to finish, and that was Free Entrepreneurs of America. Again, I have to shorten my time, but hopefully the board have any questions or concerns, I'm more than willing to address your questions or concerns, but we feel that we have been damaged by these decisions. The board, we should have been awarded the field long before the end of the year, the field before this board to correct this wrong, because you have the power and authority to, and now that you've been informed, we ask you to award Free Entrepreneurs on the baseball field. And again, more details, and you have the civics, we would have presented more in detail, but of course, time not granted us. Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, did y'all talk to anybody, individual board members yourself before we started the process? Because to sell the property, it was a motion at one time to sell the property for $40,000. I was wondering, did you have conversations with a board member before we even started?
As constituency, we had conversations with board members about our vision and plan for the property, so they can embrace what we was doing and ask for their support. Now, again, we heard that bid, and we don't know where that number came from ourselves. And keep in mind, I know, when I walk out of here, I see names, but I don't know names. I wouldn't tell you. If I walk past you guys on the street, I wouldn't know neither of you from the next person. Yes, sir.
Why did you stop bidding?
Well, let me explain that.
And the reason I asked is he said you didn't stop bidding, you didn't have it.
We placed our bid on, I think, February 21. I had it February 21. Somewhere in the early afternoon. We got a notice that as we have been getting, another bid is coming. We assumed when we got that was our bid, and we wait for another 10 days. Then when we called just twice, they wait for the close on the 7th. of the bidding, no one else did. We were told at that time that right after your bid came in, the same day, I guess it was in that little small one, the other bid came in. And they took the higher bid over the lower bid for bid. I'm in Chicago, reading the information that's coming in. I'm assuming that, there's no distinguish that two bid came in, a higher bid came in, and that was one of my presentations that I took out, but it only acknowledged that another bid came in. And it was, so it didn't acknowledge two bids came in. So we assumed when they acknowledged, we knew we had just made our payment, not an hour and a half earlier. So that was it. And then we went based on what Mr. Malone told us when we made our first bid and bid it over the city that it should have closed. That was our argument, it should have closed. He said, even though your bid is closed, it has to go another 10 days round. And the transcript is in there. And I questioned him on that. That's why I was questioning. So it was confusing because apparently two bids came in, but the email didn't distinguish that a higher bid came in over our bid, so we got it. And again, it's documented. So we assume, and when we talked to Ms. Braswell 30 minutes before the bid closed, she said, well, another bid came in over the other. That time, it was just, she was getting ready for a board meeting. There was no time for us to scramble and get the payment. We wouldn't have let them. We was prepared to go as high as $150,000 to keep the bid going. So it was confusing, and I'm not gonna make an excuse for it because the bottom line, if we were prepared to present this whole thing on June 18 at the latest, the city should have been out of this on 3 different occasions, and that only left us. So by default, we were not allowed to increase our bid. The city dropped out, wasn't notified, city paper disqualified them. And the fact of the matter is, if you review all the information, if this school board did not solicit the city, they would not have put in a bid because we got the transcripts from them and we got the information where the alderman, the city councilman, what we call him, the Chicago alderman, the city councilman questioned the city manager, why did they ever put a bid in? They didn't approve it. That's in the documentation, but I never got down to that part of the presentation. So we know how it had not been for the board chair soliciting the city, they would not have put a bid in. And we was told that by the councilman.
It's amazing to me also how we've done this before with 2 other school properties. We went through 10 rounds this fall of school. 18. Excuse me? 18 rounds. Our paper, we went through how many rounds? 5, okay. And we've never had a problem with upset bid process. And, Spalding had a historical society too. They had a Spalding Alumni Association that was bidding on that problem. The upset bid process keeps it fair for everybody that wants to be involved. We haven't had a problem.
Well, again, there were procedures that we were trying to outline that were not applied, that would have stopped the bidding, and we would have been the only one that stopped that. But the city, first of all, the city check was invalidated. That only left us. The bidding should have been over. If the city dropped out, and I have Mr. Malone in his own words that I never got to, saying, quote, the city is bailing. It will go 10 more days, that's in the transcript. And he said, because you won't bid, because your bid is already in. And he said, the city is bailing, so that leaves 10 more days to be over. So if he had knowledge that the city was bailing, why would mean that was getting out? Somebody had to tell him that. So why didn't they stop the bidding if there was nobody else but us in the city? So the procedures that was not followed by those that was doing this, that went unchallenged and unquestioned, because it was never brought before this board and we were not given an opportunity, because we would immediately file a petition to stop the bidding if we were made know by the school board that the city had dropped out. We know it from the city because they told us on a Zoom call that they reached out to us to be a part of on that Friday. And they dropped out on a Monday.
Let me ask a question.
Yes.
What was the day that you said that there was a second bid and you assumed that when they said, when you were told that another bid had come in, you assumed the conversation was about your bid?
That was the final bids on March 7th.
March 7th.
But our whole,
February 21st. February 21st.
okay, it ended on March 7th. It ended on March 7th. Yeah, the bid ended on March 7th. But the whole point, if we take into totality what was presented, since I didn't get it all, the bid should have never went to February 7th.
Okay. After the February 22nd,
21.
21, okay, I wrote 21, but then I heard 7 in my brain. Okay, after the bid on the 21st,
Mhm.
when were you told that a second bid had come in and that the upset bid process would be reinitiated 10 days later? Is that right? Am I saying that right?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, that's exactly what happened. And I forwarded the email to the board and to Mr. Maiden to my, that's right, I was not very much. To me, that she sent an email to Mr. Maiden notifying him of the upset bid process. It said that the new number has to be at least $80,000 and change dollars. And it linked it to the board's website where the notice was posted that said that the number that had been received was $76,000. So had he have gone to the board's website, he would have seen $76,000, not just $72,000. Had he looked at the newspaper posting that you're required to do, the only thing that you're required to do is put it in the newspaper. Had he looked at the newspaper posting, he would have seen $76,000, not $72,000. Or had he have called before Monday at 3:45, he could have found out. But he called Monday at 3:45 and found out that it was a different number, and he didn't have time in the 15 minutes that was left to submit a bid. And it's all my fault, and it's Mr. Sharp's fault that he didn't read the news.
Let's don't talk about that right.
But
But let me, hold on a minute, hold on.
We don't get
Sir,
time to speak to you.
Hold on. The process, help me with that. If he submitted a bid on the 21st,
Yeah,
and you got a second bid,
right,
on what day?
the same day.
21st.
Yeah.
Before the 21st of February, what had you done when you got a second bid? How did you let the bidders know?
That there were multiple bids?
Right.
And you
how?
don't typically get multiple bids. I would probably agree that that's the case. You don't typically get more than one bid during the 10-day window. Because once you get another bid, everybody knows that it's got to start over again.
Right.
So,
Had you,
but nothing prevents you from getting more than one bid during the 10-day period. I'm just saying that typically you don't. When you get multiple, you have people.
I got that part. I got that part.
People wait, so the 21st at 4 o'clock would have been the cutoff time, right?
Mhm.
So they waited until the 21st, early in the afternoon, to submit their bid. Which is fine, it's perfectly fine. Another group came in, found out that there was a bid, so they submitted a bid higher than that bid on the same day before 4 o'clock p.m. So you got two bids on the 21st before 4 o'clock p.m.
Right.
You then take the higher of the two bids, and what you're required to do is to put it in the newspaper. All right, you put in the newspaper the new number, and we, as a courtesy to people, we calculate the little 5% of this and 10% of that, so that, and we tell them that therefore the minimum bid is $80,000 in this particular case. That's in the newspaper.
Okay, my question is though, which is not clear yet
Okay,
to me.
sure,
I understand that process,
okay,
but where I'm not clear at is in the past, before this bid on the 21st,
21st.
had you sent anything out to Ms. Maiden or any other bidders on any other time we did property like this, have you ever notified the people that we got bids from such and such person rather than require them to go to the newspaper?
I can't speak to what we did with Spalding and Post because I get the notices of what the new number is. We generate a new notice from the newspaper and we send it to whoever is handling that responsibility at the time. In this particular case, the information that I received from your staff shows that every time they got a number, they sent an email out to the people who were involved in the bidding.
Every time.
Every time they sent an email out to the people who were involved in the bidding on this particular one. So in this situation, there were 5 rounds. After the first round, people who were involved, an email would go out, and then more people got involved, and an email would go out to that group of people. And then another one, so an email would go out to all the people who had been participating in the process on each of the rounds. Mr. Mason submitted the first bid, so he was included in all of the emails. Not everybody got all of the emails because they didn't participate in the first round. But as they participated, they were added to the group of people that got the emails. And Mr. Mason got all 5 emails, all 4 emails, I guess. And he would be the only group that got all 4 emails for the second, third, fourth, and fifth round, because he submitted the first bid. But then the other people, as they bid, they were added into the group.
Okay. The question I'm trying to get an answer to that I'm not clear yet is that with the process for the first 4 bids, because if I'm understanding correctly, the bid that we're talking about now on the 21st
Yes.
would have been the 5th bid.
No, that was the 4th.
That was the 4th bid.
6.
Okay. After that 4th bid closed,
Correct.
did you send an email
Yeah.
to everybody?
Yeah. Everybody got an email. The email said, and I forwarded it to the board, the email said that there's a new round, the new upset bid amount is $80,000. It did not, in the text of the email, it did not say that the bid received was $76,000. It just said that the new number is $80,000. But it attached a link to the website, and when you click on it, in the email that I sent to you, you can click on it. It takes you to the posting, and in the posting, it says the bid that we received is $76,000. The new number is $80,000. I'm rounding up and down just to make the numbers equal.
What I'm trying to get to, and I still haven't gotten what I'm looking for yet, but what I'm trying to get to is that did the email that you sent out after bids 2 or 3,
Yeah.
was it the same verbiage
Yeah.
as the email that you sent out after bid
Well, I didn't send it out.
or whoever?
Staff did, but yeah.
Whoever.
It's the same email, yeah.
And I've had so many emails, so they're all running
Right,
together, and I'm trying to understand
correct.
exactly where the breakdown was, not only for Mr. Maiden's benefit, but for future. So we don't have this anymore, because as Mr. Lamb down there already said, we've done this more than one time and we never had a problem. So I'm trying to figure out now what happened. And I've not gotten there yet.
Well, if you don't look at the notice, then you will make a mistake. So if somehow the board wants to protect against people not looking at the notice, I don't know how you can do that. The statute says provide a notice. You provided a notice, you put it in the newspaper like you're supposed to. You also sent a link to the notice to the people who did it. We can't make them open the notice and look at it. But if you open the notice and look at it, you will see that the minimum bid, the bid received is $76,000 and the upset bid is $80,000. If the bid that you submitted was $72,000, you would know that the $76,000 bid is more than your $72,000 bid, and therefore you might want to submit an upset bid. But I don't know that there's any clearer way that the board can communicate to somebody other than to send them an email, which you're not required to do.
But we have done it in the past.
Which
Is that correct?
you did it, and he got the email. He never has said he didn't get the email. He got the email. He just misunderstood the email. And I can't get him misunderstanding the email.
I'm but I just want to know,
Oh,
before it
I
comes,
She'll recognize Ms. Schaefer.
my question was, the billing out. I did not, and I'm trying to follow these exhibits that are here, where the city of Rocky Mount was alluded to him that the Rocky Mount was billing out of the process. Was that something that was relayed? Because I'm trying to find it in what I'm seeing here, and he said that, so I was just trying to find out if you had done that.
Yeah, me?
Yeah, because he was saying,
So, and I don't remember the specific details, but what happened is the city of they submitted a bid, the city of Rocky Mount submitted a higher bid. We ran the upset bid notice on the city of Rocky Mount's higher bid, and in the process, the city of Rocky Mount withdrew their bid. So then we re-ran their number again, because we had to run their number through the upset bid process, because we've got to go 10 days without an upset occurring. When we ran their number through the upset bid process again, the Nash Holdings group then submitted an upset bid. And then we ran the Nash Holdings number through the upset bid process. They submitted an upset bid. And then that's when we got the double bid, and then that was it.
so Rocky Mount did withdraw their bid at some point?
They withdrew the bid, yeah.
Within the 10 days.
I don't remember exactly when it was withdrawn, but it was withdrawn after the process had started.
But then why didn't the process move? I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry, please. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Dr. Washington.
Yeah, I just have one question regarding the city's payment. Was it in compliance with what we required,
Yes,
the method?
yes. The chair recognizes Mr. Dean.
Was there an email sent after his bid was put in to notify that the bids were started?
Yes.
Okay.
So, but, I mean, based on the information I received from staff, yes. Any further questions?
I just want to clarify something.
Yes, sir.
When you said that I think, I'm trying to understand.
Yeah.
The bid process, he stated there's a general statute that says it must be applied to the certified state, is that correct? Because this is not a certified check.
Is it 22?
Correct.
No, so,
22.
so I don't want to mistake.
That's paragraph. Bidders shall deposit 5% of the total increase, be it in cash or certified funds, if not funds. Last paragraph. 12. Posted on the website.
Right, that's what right, so I'm trying to get the language out of the statute. So what the statute says. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
What the statute says. Let's see,
22.
While he's looking for that, I will say that we will have to push this along. Our meeting is scheduled in at 7 o'clock. We've been on this for an hour. So, for the sake of expediency, I'm gonna have Mr. Malone entertain his last remarks, and then we'll move on to the next item on the schedule.
So, here we go, thank you. So, the statute.
Nowhere in this statute here does it say that sort of thing.
Right, so what the statute says is the council shall require the offerer to deposit 5% of the bid with the city. So it just, the statute just says 5%. So the way that these statutes work, you often have to read the disposal statutes with the bids when you're acquiring stuff, because the statutes when you're acquiring stuff provides far more detail. So in the statutes that deal with when you're buying stuff, it says that the deposit has to be in cash or certified funds. We did not specify that in the original notice here. We accepted his personal check, but when it bounced, we then, as we went forward, we changed the notices to require cash or certified funds to track the other statutes that you deposit, so that we would not have another situation where a bidder would submit a check that would bounce. Okay. So we didn't require it the first time. We also have never had a check bounce. But we didn't require it the first time, and this time
We changed it to require certified funds.
after the check bounce.
So that was before Rocky Mountain bid on the 15th. 12/15, so we changed the certified funds.
We may have cashed that check.
You want to receive here and put the bank if I'm not.
Yeah, I think we cashed that.
Okay.
Just want for the record, that all of the notices that he talked about posting website, Census Redistricting, before I did and after I did, cash or certified funds. It was not changed. It was not changed. I can produce to you every notice from our very first bid of $50 to the very last bid that says that notice of sale of property, and that's at mine.
Okay, folks, we're gonna move on to the next item on the agenda, please.
Just, how are we gonna resolve this? I mean, I know this is for information, can we make a motion?
No, what we will do tonight, we've heard the information. Shannon will come to this board, this is the day we will have this board. Shannon will come before this board and share with us what the actual process is, and what their findings are. He will come after this to share what things was also going to be about. And then, that's your information we'll bring to the board for action.
On February,
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Malone.
I was just say, I'm not gonna be here Monday, so if you have questions of me, it would be good if you could work through that.
Okay. All right, so we will come back. If you have questions from Mr. Malone after our committee meeting's over, you can come back with some. Yeah, you can hit that with him. Mr. Davis.
No, I wouldn't want to say that.
Well, hey, welcome to the party, but.
If he's leaving.
Yeah, I don't see them need to pay for me and, Lindsay on there.
Yeah, that's why I need to be processed.
But he's leaving.
I mean, I will, hey, got you.
Mr. Davis.
This is for information only.
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is my, recommendation. Baseball stadium was approved for surplus by the board last June. It was offered to Nash County Board of Commissioners for the right of first refusal per the general statutes. Nash County Commissioners did not wish to purchase the property. The process chosen by the Nash County Board of Education to surplus the property was voted and approved by upset bid process. Once the process was concluded, William Scott Roberts submitted a final bid of $76,792.40. If this action is passed, funds will be placed in capital outlay fund balance. There are no other fiscal implications at this time until the board approves or disapproves.
What was that bid again, Mr. Davis? I'm bid.
The final bid is $76,792.40. And that was by William Scott Roberts.
Thank you, sir, appreciate it.
Yes.
Next item on the agenda is the North Carolina Record of Retention and Disposition Schedule.
Based on, the lawyer's advice, we're gonna discuss that in closed session on Monday. So we'll move forward.
Northern Nash High School HVAC, Mr. Davis.
Okay, Northern Nash High School HVAC replacement in the lobby area. A pre-bid meeting was conducted in March for the replacement of HVAC equipment at Northern Nash High School in the lobby and classrooms adjacent to the lobby. SPC Mechanical, Heat Transfer Systems, Arnold Heating and Cooling, and Carolina Commercial Systems submitted bids. Carolina Commercial Systems of North Carolina submitted a low bid of $213,514 as shown on the attached bid document. This project will be funded with ESSER stimulus funds. Superintendent recommends the project be approved to Carolina Commercial Systems of North Carolina, the amount of $213,514.
I need a motion to, present this to the full board.
Motion made.
Second.
It's been properly moved by Mr. Lamb, second by Mrs. Davis. Questions or discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor, roll call vote. Franklin Lamb.
Yes.
Sharonda Bullock. Lane Duncan.
Yes.
Dr. Chavis.
Yes.
Bill Sharp, yes. Thank you, sir. Next item on the agenda is Southern Nash Middle School.
This is window replacement at Southern Nash Middle School. Pre-bid meeting was conducted in March also for the replacement of windows in the 2, 3, 5, and cafeteria at Southern Nash Middle School. Carolina Classic Window and Glass Incorporated and L.A. Downey and Son Incorporated submitted bids. L.A. Downey and Son Incorporated submitted a low bid of $663,834 as shown on the attached bid document. This project will also be funded with ESSER stimulus funds. Superintendent recommends the project be approved to L.A. Downey and Sons Incorporated, the amount of $663,834.
I need a motion.
I have a question.
I need a motion. It's been, I need a second.
Second.
It's been probably moved by Mr. Dunn, second by Ms. Davis. Question, discussion.
Yeah, I
The
just
chair
have,
I'm asking the board if we sort of contain that we recognize Mrs. Davis, so.
this will be a quick one. I was just wondering the difference in the pricing, is the quality of the material, what was making the difference, you feel like?
When you're
The
saying
windows.
the windows, all of these window numbers we presented, this was probably one of the cheaper. That the number of manufacturers and installers we're getting now, we're inviting 3 and 4, having 2 and 3 show up. You've noticed L.A. Downey, I think, is one of the newer ones, but windows and just about every commodity right now are starting to really increase. If you price windows right now, they're really.
Well, I know, but is it, are we taking a lesser quality or?
No, we got a standard spec that we use for those. Yes, ma'am.
That's all I need to know.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions, discussions? Roll call vote for Southern Nash Middle School window replacement. Franklin Lamb.
Yes.
Sharonda Bullock. Lane Duncan.
Yes.
Dr. Chavis.
Yes.
Bill Sharp, yes. Next item on the agenda is Northern Nash High School HVAC replacement, weight room.
Yep, this is weight room and adjacent classrooms. We just kind of combine units and groups when we bid these. Pre-bid was conducted in March for the replacement of HVAC equipment in the weight room and classrooms. SPC Mechanical, Heat Transfer Systems, and Carolina Commercial Systems of North Carolina submitted bids shown on the attached bid document. This project will also be funded with ESSER stimulus funds. Superintendent recommends the project be approved to Carolina Commercial Systems of North Carolina in the amount of $164,580.
Need a motion?
Motion moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved by Mr. Lamb, second by Ms. Davis. Questions or discussions? Hearing none, roll call vote. Franklin Lamb.
Yes.
Sharonda Bullock. Lane Duncan.
Yes.
Dr. Chavis.
Yes.
Bill Sharp, yes. Thank you, Mr. Davis, for the outstanding job. We appreciate your services. Next item on the agenda, we get a chance to see Ms. Whitman. Come on up, Ms. Whitman. Budget amendments, we love to hear about. Smiling faces, I like it.
Mr. Sharp and Vice Chairman, Washington, and the board. I am here this morning, or this evening. This evening, on behalf of Superintendent Dr. Ellis, to present to you budget amendment number 2. And the first is the state funding. I'm just making this quick. We've made a few changes. We converted some teacher positions from 001 to foreign exchange teachers in 020. We also received PRC 071. That is additional supplements for teachers and instructional support. We are paying that this month to the teachers. The state gave us a amount of $1,087 per full-time working teacher or instructional support. So that is being paid this month. Also, we moved out of 130 textbooks into 131 for digital purchases. Fund 2, the local current expense. Those changes are just due to directors and school leadership. They are budgeting within their PRC. Fund 3, the federal funding. These changes are just due to federal funds being dropped for budgets that are already in place. Fund 8, our donations and grants. The changes here are changes that are maintained by directors for these grants. And also down note that we have a PRC 043, that was revenue received. The description here has, we will update, it should read donations for needy children. This was a fundraiser by the social workers, and they collected funds by the fundraiser for various nonprofit organizations. Once that was completed, the monies was distributed by check to those organizations. Are there any questions or comments?
Okay, no questions, comments on the motion. It's been moved by Mr. Nutten, second by Mr. Lamb. Questions or discussions? Let's get one comment. Thank you so very much for our outstanding job. Not yet. We're not gonna go yet. So, it's been probably moved and seconded. No question or discussion, roll call vote. Franklin Lamb? Toronto Bullock?
Yes.
Blake Dunston? Yes. Donna Davis?
Yes.
Bill Sharp, yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item we will discuss, I'll turn it over to, we'll have a discussion around the student support services. Dr. LaShonda Washington.
All right, at this time, I'd like to call the Student Support Services and Operations Committee to order. I'll start with roll call. Board Member Davis?
Yes.
Board Member Jenkins? Board Member Edwards? All right, we have Board Member E. Bullock.
Yes.
Great. All right, former established, consider Mr. Edwards. We do have one item on the agenda to discuss for today, and that, is about food safety and metal detectors, and, Dr. Farrell is going to give us the.
Thank you. Good afternoon, evening, Chairman Sharp, Vice Chairwoman, Dr. Washington, to the rest of our board members, and to Dr. Ellis. Stand before you this evening to present information concerning school safety and the use of metal detectors. Also, we'll be sharing some information about district weapon data sets. So several weeks ago, Dr. Washington and I had a conversation about the use of metal detectors, and she was interested in possibly what could we do as a school district to ensure the safety of students and staff as it relates to students bringing weapons on school campus. So I spoke with Dr. Ellis, and Dr. Ellis asked me to do some research around the use of metal detectors. So to be quite honest, it's just not something that we have used in Nash County Public Schools before. We have done some random wandering of students getting off buses and entering into schools, but we've never had a full-scale process where students were entering into the building through the use of metal detectors. And so I reached out to Donna Doherty, who's done some work with the Center for Safer Schools, and I asked her, does she have any literature, any research, any surveys that have been done around the country in terms of the efficacy of metal detectors as a deterrent for weapons? And she told me that she would look and get some information back to me, which she was able to. So the information that I'm sharing with you tonight actually came from information that she had gotten from me through her contacts with the Center for Safer Schools. This particular research here was a national survey that was conducted on approximately 630 students. The surveys had 55 questions. The students had to be around the age of 21 or younger and had attended public school in the last year and a half. I think it's important to point out that this research was done in a region that's not common or near us. As you look there, you can see where the cities or the counties that were involved in this particular research. And if you look at the student demographics, you can see that in this particular study with the 630 young people, it's different than when you look at our student population, where our African-American student population is approximately 52%. Our white student population is about 30%, and our Hispanic student population, Latinx, is around 13%. So taking those things into consideration as we look at the demographics of this particular data set. You see, Quinn? Thank you, sir. So what this research did was it called the 50-some questions together and kind of pulled out 4 data points that it really wanted to focus on. And this first data point here, when asked what makes respondents feel safe when physically attending school, as you can see here, that 84% of the students selected their friends, 63% of the students selected teachers, and only 16% selected police. Next one. This next data point was the students at majority black and brown schools were more likely to go through metal detectors than students at majority white schools. And you can see here that 53% of the respondents who described their schools as majority black and 56% of those who described their schools as majority black and brown reported going through metal detectors daily or multiple times each day, as compared to 11% of the respondents who attended majority white schools. The next point, additionally, Black and Latinx respondents were often more likely to be targeted with metal detectors than white respondents. Of those with metal detectors at schools, 34% Black respondents had their belongings taken compared to 14% of white respondents. 19% of Black respondents had been yelled at compared to 8% of white respondents, and 34% of Black respondents and 22% of Latinx respondents have been made to take off their shoes versus 70% of white respondents. And then the final point in this survey was when asked what would they like to see more or better quality out of their school, students overwhelmingly selected resources, programs, and supports, not police or security. So you can see there are 78% of the respondents selected dedicated youth-led programs to increase access to college and financial aid. 78% selected mental health supports, and 68% selected a safe, comfortable place to hang out with their friends. So there's been research on the use of metal detectors in schools since the early 90s, early to mid 90s. And the literature that I have seen. I'm not saying that there's not any other literature, but that I have reviewed over the past couple of weeks really calls it down to this, and that is that the data is insufficient in its ability to determine whether metal detectors used in schools are true deterrents from keeping students from participating in violent behavior or bringing weapons to school. And that in some cases, it causes a negative stigma for the schools and actually causes students to feel less safe. So here, if you look at a 9-year trend, we went back to 2013-14 school year. We have here the number of weapons and the number of firearms reported in Nash County Public Schools going back. We were Nash Rocky Mount Public Schools for some of those data points. I would not be honest if I did not say that we know that looking at the 2013-14 through the 17-18 school year, those numbers were not reported accurately, and we have done some work with our principals on how they code violations, because it's important to us that we know exactly what's happening in our school, where it's happening, because our objective is to make sure that we're putting the resources in place so that schools are safe. And so in the work that we've been doing with principals in terms of reporting, you can see that in the 18-19 school year, there was an increase, 19-20, and then we were out for COVID. And you can see where we are this school year as far as weapons, and the school year is not over. You can also see there that 18-19, there was one firearm found on campus. 2021, there was one, and at this point in time, this school year, we found 2. Now,
And those are the ones that you found, correct?
yes, yes.
This is a silly question. What is considered a weapon? I mean, is it fire height and,
Okay.
I was gonna have them pull that up right now.
Say, there are-
Will you pull up that policy, Mr. McQueen?
Yes.
There's a plethora of. I can read it. It's, loaded, unloaded, destructive devices, knives, nuclear, biological, chemical weapons, slingshots, lung shots, leaded canes, blackjacks, metal knuckles, BB guns, air rifles, air pistols, stun guns, electric shock weapons, tasers, ice picks, razors, razor blades, fireworks, gunpowder, ammunition, any sharp pointed or edged instrument, except unaltered nail files and clips and tools used for the preparation of food can be considered weapons. Mace, pepper spray, and other personal defense spray. So it is, well, it's big. Where it used to not be. Yeah, it's changed. So,
Dr. Perry, just in a follow-up, can you tell us what we're finding? I mean, I
So-
know it's probably a wide range, but.
So we are finding a plethora of knives. I think we would be shocked at the number of knives we find at the elementary level. And those students often are not doing it in a threatening manner. It's more so because it's cool or it's something that they forgot and left in their pocket. Very seldom have we seen at the elementary level that those students are using them to threaten someone, but we do have knives show up quite often at the elementary school level. Another one would be BB guns, but we find that BB gun, air pistols, we're finding that in elementary, middle, and high, where students are bringing those. Occasionally, you will find something that's not a knife, but it is a sharp pointed object that could be used to do some harm to someone.
And like in 2013 and 14, I know it says 0 for firearm, but there's a young lady who at the time was in elementary school and brought the firearm, handgun, loaded to school on behalf of taking care of her mama, because dad was beating the mama. So a lot of times they're bringing the weapons to school to protect their family members.
Firearm, but it doesn't distinguish between a pellet gun and a 357 gun.
Yes, sir. So a pellet gun would be considered a weapon, whereas a firearm is considered a gun, a loaded gun, actual handgun, pistol, or shotgun is considered a weapon, but it should be documented as a firearm. And that's where we, are able to tell whether it's a real gun or not. So this was data that I wanted to share, and Dr. Ellis wanted to make sure that, we presented what type of weapons, or what is considered a weapon, so that you also had that context.
And the weapon change, well, if I'm correct, not correctly, is that now a firearm is considered 365 suspension automatic, whereas a weapon is not.
That's correct. And in the event of a firearm, the only time it would not be a 365-day suspension is if the policy states that if you are able to determine that the student had no ill intent in bringing the weapon, or it was the case where someone walked up to a student, gave them a bag, the student did not know what was in the bag, and then they later found out it was a firearm. Those would be the only instances in that you would not give 365. And then the previous one where I talked about where the student did not have any ill intent, but they brought the gun, that still you have the right to recommend long-term suspension.
Mr. Chair, this was clarity. When we do long-term suspension, we still have an alternative method for individuals, correct?
Not when they bring a firearm, and it has been determined that, we can't determine whether they had ill intent or not, but we know they brought it. They knew they had it. They did not try to, make anyone aware. In those cases, the superintendent has, given 365. And that is in alignment with our policy and the state, legislation.
I was told that our current temp machines can also be programmed to be metal detectors, is that?
That's correct.
So if we did decide to go that route, we would have some recourse that's not already money that has to be spent necessarily.
That's correct. And it's full
Interesting.
right.
I see what you're saying about it having a negative effect possibly, but.
In full transparency, in schools that have used metal detectors as an entrance into the school, they have 3, 4, 5 areas set up where students can enter. Because I want you to think about the process that you would have to go through if you're setting up those machines and using that on a daily basis. It's more than just a student walking through. In our school district, we allow students to bring their pocketbooks. We allow them to bring their book bag. If they're coming in with those items have to be looked through. And it's not that you're going in and digging in and pulling everything out, but it takes time. And so you could run anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute on average. And if you're getting up around a minute on average, then you're starting school at a later point of the day, unless, again, you have 4 or 5 areas where you're bringing students in, and then the pull on manpower in your school building becomes the next area of concern.
Sometimes also, go a little further, when we have no detectors, you have more problems with the students in line waiting to go through no detectors and get some kind of word, because so jumping in front of me, and they're all in a hurry to get to see their friends inside the building, and it causes some problem.
I agree with Dr. Farrow that just in your mind, students, if you got a elementary school who only has one metal detector, because we only bought one temperature for elementary school, 600 students, 1 minute apiece, 600 minutes in the morning.
Ms. Bolt had a question, I'm sorry.
I would just like to say thank you for that report. And I would like to suggest to our chair if she would, consider having us invite, a team from the Safer School, initiative to come and talk with us. I serve on that committee, and at each of our meetings, we get really good, up-to-date information, and they may have some other alternatives that we might be able to benefit from.
I wanted to share also with you, because we have a board policy for student searches. And I think Mr. Dr. Washington had an opportunity to look through that today. And it pulls out some, very specific things that, we should do in terms of student searches and how student searches, should be conducted. And I just wanted to make sure that, either that we had this policy in place and that this was already here. And that if, at some point, the board wanted to do something outside of this, then this policy probably needs to be revisited, or we would need to adopt another policy, another type of policy.
So this one's based on a reasonable suspicion for certain.
Yes, sir.
Which is different than just
Yes, sir.
searching everything.
Yes, if I may, I'm sorry, Dr. Donnelly, if you give me permission to roll, because I got kids to take care of at 7. But I want to say one thing, just as a little caution on perception of how one of the slides read within it, especially a bit hard in it, 32 years of doing it. There's not always law enforcement officers that are trained sitting there operating the metal detectors. So when it talked about people getting yelled at, people getting searched, and all this other kind of stuff, and it gave a little bit of a negative connotation about the entrance ways into metal detectors. That's not always a law enforcement officer doing the negative things. And I wanted to get that out there because I didn't want that negative connotation on our good SROs that are doing a really good job, especially in our system.
Absolutely.
Jane, before he leaves, I need to get folks, a few minutes, my committee.
Okay.
So just to wrap it up, what I'm looking for from the community is, a motion to, give staff permission to go ahead and collect our data for our region from our stakeholders, parents, teachers, staff, with regard to safety, and then report that back so that we can enhance our safety plan and kind of, operate with the resources that we have already, but do more, because I definitely feel like it's time for us to do more. So, I just want to get community thoughts on that, and if someone wants to make that motion,
I make the motion.
And I'll second it.
All in
roll
favor?
call vote. Davis,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Bullock,
Yes.
and me, I am a yes. And again, for the record, the motion was to, a recommendation for staff to conduct survey research pertaining to school safety or Nash County Public School stakeholders. And that's to be used for safety planning for the upcoming school year.
Yes.
Yeah, one more time. Are you good?
You good?
Okay. Is there any further discussion?
Can I say one more thing?
Yes.
I was just reminding the superintendent, I think we all need to hear this. Speaking of the safer schools, a year or two prior to COVID, Nash Rocky Mount, as we were known then, was the example that people on the state level used when they talked about safety in schools. We were way above and beyond what other folks were doing. And we were looked at and competent a lot.
I think one thing to point out with the 2 guns that we've had this year on campus, I think it speaks to those school staff that those students felt comfortable speaking to an adult. Because when you look at the literature and the research around school safety and gun violence, schools that have positive working relationships with students are more apt to have those students report when there's a gun on campus than in schools where the school culture does not have that positive relationship between staff and students. And in both cases that we had, students reported it to staff.
Is there any other further discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
By a motion has been made by Ms. E. Bullock for the record and seconded by Board Member B. Taylor.
Next item on the agenda will be the Nash Board of Education Academic Service and Accountability Committee, chaired by Mr. Franklin Lane.
We start out with, roll call vote for excuse me. Ms. Sandra Washington.
Yes.
Ms. Smith. Yes. Rhonda Moore.
Yes.
We will start out with the letters and secret, Denise Hargrove Jones.
Good evening, Academic Services and Accountability Committee members. During the January 6th committee meeting, I presented you information regarding our letters, science of reading training for our district-wide for elementary teachers. So as a reminder, letters, which stands for Language Essentials for Teachers of Reading and Spelling, has been chosen by our state as a professional learning for all pre-K through 5 teachers. And letters provide teachers with those skills that are necessary to help their students master those foundational reading skills. So as a part of this district initiative, we're cohort 2, all Nash County Public Schools pre-K through 5th grade teachers, EC resource teachers, English language teachers, instructional coaches, MTSS facilitators, and principals are participating in this letters training. Letters is an intensive 1 or 2 year professional learning commitment that requires our participants to spend hours completing online modules, related readings, and classroom application activities. The estimated course completion time for our K-5 teachers is anywhere from 137 hours to 168 hours. For our preschool teachers, it's approximately 32 to 38 hours. I stand before you this evening to present a proposal to provide the following bonus payments for all participants who must complete this state mandated training. For each unit, we would like to offer $250. For our EC, our letters pre-K participants, they have 1 volume of coursework, which is 4 units. So for those 4 units, that would be a total of $1,000 that they would be paid over the course of that training, that 1 year training. For our K-5 participants, they have 2 volumes or 8 units that they will do over a 2-year span. So for $250 per unit, that would be a total of $2,000, $1,000 per unit that they would get paid over the 2-year course. These payments would be made $500 in those, because that's how we're completing the course. So they would receive $500 at the end of June when they have completed units 1 and 2. And then they would receive $500 in December of 2022 for pre-K when their units 3 and 4 completed. That would be the total course for them. For the K-5 participants, they would receive $500 in June once they finish units 1 and 2, and then $500 in December of 22 also once they complete units 3 and 4. The difference in the K-5, they would continue the next school year for their second half of their course and receive the same payment. The fiscal implications are in the proposal as well. It is $1,129,171 to be paid with ESSER funding. It aligns to our strategic priorities 1, 2, and 3. So it is the recommendation of the superintendent that we pay these bonus payments for our state participants in the letters professional development. Our teachers have embraced this. It has been a heavy lift, we knew that. That is why I stood before you before we started, that they are really digging into the coursework. And we're asking them, it's approximately, when we talk about it being 168, 170 hours, they have to spend at least 2 hours a week. And that is not time that is built into their day, even though principals have made time to try to free up some schedules, to allow them to work on letters when they can because there's classroom applications. But this work does have to happen outside of the school day. And so we would like to incentivize them for their efforts
And we believe that this course will have a huge impact on student learning. You know, the ability to read proficiently is a situation of life or death for a lot of our students. And we want to encourage our teachers to take this seriously.
If the state will let you continue with this program until it either fails or passes according to the teachers.
And the good thing about letters that I found, it is program agnostic. So no matter, because those things do change, you know, what adoptions are made, what teachers are learning through letters is how to teach reading. If you have a resource, no matter what resource you have. So once they master this and learn it, this is something that can never be taken away from you.
Do they get the certification hours also?
Yes, they do get CEU credit. Yes, sir.
It's good.
So is this state mandated?
It is.
So they're gonna mandate it, but they're not funding.
They're funding the
I
material.
hope somebody's on Zoom can say.
Yes, sir.
That's getting old. That's
Yes,
getting
sir.
old quick.
Amen.
But $1 million, the
That
best
is
funding,
the cost.
that money's gonna run out. How are we gonna pay for this when that cash cow's gone?
Well, this is a 2-year.
This is a 2-year training. After 2 years, they'll be done. Yes, sir.
Never mind.
We get it. Like I know, well, this business, like I told the DPI folks, I have a daughter in teaching training there. I said that colleges and universities ought to be training teachers coming out. Yeah, so when they get the teachers, they won't have to do it.
That is part of the plan.
But I mean, it seems like we're putting a lot of effort into something that I'm seeing the head shaking that in 2 years, there's not $1 million, this probably going along.
Letters won't go away.
Let it walk, but the
Yeah.
funding, well, the training should be over.
Yes.
They'll be trained, which is what we want. I'm in the wrong business. This is like a
This
grant.
is done, yes, it is. It is.
That's probably the big deal with business, because when they start open court, everybody took that training, they didn't get any conversation, and you jerk the rug out from under the feet when they learn how to do it good. I'll entertain a motion to, adopt the letter of the state. Motion by Ms. Washington, second by Ms. Bullock. Roll call vote, Ms. Washington.
Yes.
Mr. Bennett.
Yes.
Ms. Bullock.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Thank you so much.
We'll say that down next to.
Okay. Number call of account 2022.
Good evening. Ms. Hargrove Jones and myself will present tonight on Summer Scholars Academy 2022. So I'll start the first part, and then she will end up with the last session. So we wanted to begin with our Summer Scholars Academy Committee. We wanted to share with you who all is on the Summer Scholars Academy Committee. You see that we have transportation, we have facilities and maintenance, we have AIG, our ESL directors, our Title I directors, our federal programs. So we are bringing everyone to the table because we feel like that's so important when we're talking about our Summer Scholars Academy for our students. To fund Summer Scholars this summer, you see that we're going to use a variety of funding sources, running from PRC 170 to our Read to Achieve camp. This year, this is new with PRC 176. That's what's used to fund our 6th, 9th, and 12th graders. And then we also have a new funding source, PRC 177, which is a career accelerated funding source where we are actually going to have a bridge with our 8th graders moving into 9th grade, working on career pathways. And then the rest of our grade levels, 4th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 11th, will be funded through other remaining ESSER funds. This summer, our attendance criteria is that students in pre-K 12 who are classified as at risk and or negatively impacted by the effects of COVID-19 will be invited to attend. This can include our teacher input, grades, other assessments that we utilize to see where students are. And then wanted to remind you also that our high school students will participate in credit recovery for the courses that they did not, were not successful in. What we're looking at right now, as far as, and excuse the slide, the secretary is off a little bit there, but wanted to let you know for elementary, this year we're going to run Monday through Thursday, which we do on our summer hours. Elementary will run from 8:30 to 3:30, and that will run from June the 13th through June 30th. Secondary will run from 7:30 to 2:30, and that will run from the same for middle school, June the 13th through June the 30th. But high school will actually run from June the 13th through July the 21st because of the credit recovery that they're having to take multiple credit recoveries. We also wanted to share with you the summer scholar sites. Now you will see that there's a few schools that are on here, and that's because we're going to be doing some maintenance at those schools and some construction. So we did not have those schools on there, but each student at every school will be served. So they will go to another school if they are not in their particular school. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Hargrove Jones to continue with Summer Scholars Academy.
During our Summer Scholars Academy, we'll also offer a program for students in our adaptive classrooms. It will also run that June 13th through the 30th. We heard from our teachers last year that they really would rather continue the year, do it in June, and then have part of their summer left. The theme of this adaptive camp for Summer Scholars Academy is Out of This World Summer Camp. They will invite students with significant cognitive disabilities. It is open for our adaptive students in K through 8. It's designated schools. You'll see the schools on the next slide. And the purpose, just like the rest of our Summer Scholars Academy, is to mitigate that student loss due to COVID-19. Here are the sites for elementary and secondary for the adaptive program. The items that need to be approved for Summer Scholars Academy this evening with the Read to Achieve Summer Camp. That is for our 2nd and 3rd grade students. It is driven by that Read to Achieve legislation. We must, each local school administrative unit shall provide a sign-in bonus to be determined, by the local board of at least $1,200. In order to receive this signing bonus, teachers must fit the following criteria: be associated with high growth in reading based on EVOS data, was awarded a reading performance bonus administered by DPI, and they must accept employment to provide that reading instruction during the course of the camp. So we are proposing that we offer that $1,200 bonus. Also, we have to offer a performance bonus. Each local school administrative unit shall provide a reading camp performance bonus to teachers who provide instruction. This is for 3rd grade students on a per student amount determined by the local board of at least $150. So those teachers who teach 3rd grade in SSA, for every student that becomes proficient during the course of the camp, they will receive a bonus of at least $150. So it is the superintendent's recommendation that we offer the $1,200 bonus according to legislation for those teachers that meet that criteria, and also that we offer the $150 student bonus.
Motion by Ms. Washington, Ms. Second. Second from Ms. Booth. All in favor, roll call vote. Ms. Washington?
Yes.
Mr. Bennett? Yes. Ms. Expo?
Yes.
I'm a yes. There's one thing I would like to add. If the teacher had a whole class, then the principal of this at that school should figure out some way to have a party for that classroom, so the students could enjoy it.
Thank you.
Teacher conversation models and events teacher roles compared to events. No looks at Dr. Smith.
Good evening, Chairman Lamb. I'm sorry. Good evening to the academic and Accountability Services Committee. I am excited to stand before you this evening. Could you pull up the presentation, please? Thank you. I am excited to stand before you this evening to talk to you about the teacher compensation models and advanced teaching roles. In September of 2021, we applied for the teacher compensation model and advanced teaching competitive grant. In February, the State Board of Education reviewed all grants that were submitted, and we were awarded the grant for approximately $1.3 million to be used over the next 3 years. Nash County has partnered with Public Impact to redefine our teacher leadership roles and to provide compensation and establish career ladders for our outstanding teachers. Schools selected to participate will be based on Title I and school performance status. For the 22-23 school year, Inglewood, Williford, Winstead Avenue, Edwards, and Parker have been selected, and they have begun the planning process. In 23-24, we will expand it to 9 additional schools, and in 24-25, we will expand our model to 9 more schools. We're excited because this makes us competitive with surrounding districts, and it also incentivizes our master teachers to stay in the classroom. I do want to share with you the use of the grant funds. It is mainly to develop the advanced teaching role plans, to develop professional development, transition codes, as well as to design and implement the implementation of the compensation model. Next slide. So I shared with you that we have partnered with Public Impact. Through Public Impact, we are creating an opportunity culture. Public Impact's mission is to dramatically and aggressively improve learning outcomes for all of our students, particularly those that are from low-income areas, students of color, and other students whose needs have been historically not met. The two primary focuses of Public Impact are to reach all educators with outstanding career opportunities and to reach all of our students with excellent teaching consistency. And when we thought about applying for this grant, it was for 2 reasons. We're competitive, and we were losing far too many of our teachers to surrounding districts. But also, we had to admit that all of our students were not always in front of a quality teacher every single day. So we have to change that trajectory. In this model, we can have multi-classroom leaders, team reach, and master team reach teachers, as well as reach associates. As we continue to move through the presentation, you will see that we'll incentivize our outstanding teachers, but also there's something for our teacher assistants who've been committed to us as well. So if you look at this next slide, draw your attention to the Nash County Public Schools proposed teacher career ladder. So if you are a multi-classroom leader, you will work with or lead 7 to 8 teachers. Your course stipend will be $13,500. If you're working in a Tier 1 Title I school, there's an additional $6,000. And if you're working in a school with a high attrition rate, there's an additional $1,250. If you move down to the reach associate,
Those are our teacher assistants. These people will be instrumental in releasing our master team reach teachers, as well as our team reach teachers and our multi-classroom teacher leaders if they are still assigned as a teacher of record. So our teacher assistants will make a minimum course stipend of $1,800. If they're working in a Title I, Tier 1 school, it's an additional $1,000. And if it's in a school with an attrition rate of 15% or above, there will be an additional $1,250. So a multi-classroom teacher can make as much as $20,750 on top of his or her regular salary, and a reach associate, who's traditionally one of our teacher assistants, can make an additional $4,050. If you draw your attention to the next slide, this is a model of what this could look like. So in one of our elementary schools, you will see in kindergarten, first and second grade, each one of the grade levels has a multi-classroom leader. We know that it is a multi-classroom leader 3 because the teacher is on the outside of the classroom. If you actually count the teachers, the multi-classroom leader is leading 8 teachers. So because the school will fund 3 MCLs, the total stipend from the school will be $19,500 for each one of those MCLs. If you move down to the school details, you will see that this particular school is allocated $141,525.21. Having been a Title I principal, we know sometimes that principals spend money on programs and stuff. As I've matured and I've become more seasoned, I understand that it's best to spend your money on human capital. You get more bang for your buck. As a new 28-year-old principal, I just believe if you put stuff in teachers' hands, it makes them better, but it doesn't. When you invest in your people, you incentivize them, you provide them professional development. That is what I've learned at 51 years old. So instead of spending that $141,525 on things that don't always make an impact on student outcomes, the principal would allocate that money and invest in his or her staff. So out of the principal's budget, the principal would spend approximately $71,100. $37,000 will be district funded. So that money would support the Title I tier stipend as well as the attrition. For this school, there was not a high attrition rate, so the MCL, the team reach teachers, the reach assistants would not receive that attrition bonus. Next slide. So on behalf of Superintendent Ellis, I enthusiastically ask that you approve the advanced teaching role, career ladder, as well as the contract to partner with Public Impact. And that contract should be a part of the information in STEM.
Anybody have any questions? Mr. Charles?
Ms. Smith, real quick, you talked about the principal. So the principal will have oversight of this funding?
So the principal already has oversight of its Title I dollars.
Okay.
But what the principal does is when he or she elects to spend that money, there's a justification form that's sent out, that's completed, and it's sent to Mrs. Hargrove Jones or Mr. Thompson to approve, and then it goes to federal programs. So what we're working with principals on is using their Title I funds differently. Another thing is, even though it's $1.3 million, if we can sustain this practice outside of the grant, it's best if we use our existing funds and don't try to pay all the stipends out of that grant.
The teacher is the group leader.
Mhm.
Does that count against our state number of teachers we receive, or is that Title I money, the grant money? I know it's gonna be spent for that now. I just don't want classrooms to be more crowded because we use that as a teacher spot.
So with this model, class sizes are waived. But just remember, at some point of the day, if Mrs. Nancy Smith is a teen reach teacher, I will take part of those students and teach them. Or if I am an MCL, which is a multi-classroom teacher, it will take the place of our instructional coaches, but it's more accountability because the MCL actually owns that data with the teachers. So if I'm responsible for 8 teachers, I carry those 8 teachers and students EVOS data. Right now, we don't do that with our instructional coaches.
I just know as a board member, I wouldn't want to get a phone call the first week of school. Well, my third grade classroom has 28 students.
That should not happen.
And that was a question I had. So when we move to this model, we move away from the coaching thing that we're doing now.
Yes, and we've been clear with the 5 schools that we're working with that the coaching model will move to MCL. With all of the research that we've engaged in through this model, if it's implemented and monitored, and if people are held accountable, we believe strongly that we can drastically improve what student achievement looks like and also what teaching and learning look like in our building.
So there's right at $300,000 of funding that can go into that program also. Maybe not. So we're not hiring anybody. The money we're putting in the coaching, we can maintain that like you said. So we're not losing any positions there.
We did not lose any positions.
We're not putting anybody out of work.
No. Honestly, next week, our plan is after we bring this to the full body, we will have an information session for our teachers so they can apply for these positions.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure I'm clear on this one. That's what I asked earlier. Classroom size, they heard classroom size. You said we can waive that from this program?
The general statute says that all school districts, all PSUs, public school units, who participate in advanced teaching roles are waived from the class size requirements in grades K-3.
So there's no maximum amount of students you can have, I'm sure. Can we look at what we want to look for as for the maximum classroom size?
Good practice is really in a K-3 classroom because that's what we're concerned about, right? It's not to have more than 21 students. There's research out there, whether we agree with it or not, that says class size doesn't have an impact on student achievement. It's really about who you put in front of those children every day. And that's work by John Hass. So, you know, there's different sizes of it, but we wouldn't want 30 students in a kindergarten class. And I don't think principals would do that.
I think not from this company.
Our principal's gonna have a say so on who that feed will be.
Well, this is the way it will work.
there will be a very rigorous interview process that starts first at the district level. Unfortunately, there may be some teachers who they're not up to snuff. So things that we are requiring are things like teachers must be at least accomplished on their teacher evaluation rating. Teachers must have a positive impact on student achievement as noted through EVAS data. So if students are growing, but it's in the negative, teachers wouldn't be qualified. So that's the first level of screening that we'll use. And then we'll go through a very robust interview process. We're actually being trained on that tomorrow. And from there, we'll have a list of names that we share with principals, only if they make it in the pool.
Because I know, if it's coming to my school, I'd want to say so, because you can have one bad apple that's pulled the whole
That's
batch.
right. That's right.
No matter how good central office thinks
That's
they are,
right.
they might not be a
That's
good
right.
pick for Winston Avenue.
That's right. We'll screen them here, and then from there, the principals will have an opportunity to interview them as well.
Any more questions? I will entertain a motion to approve the teacher compensation models and advanced teaching roles.
Right here.
Second. Motion by Dr. Washington, second by Mr. Bizzett. All in favor, Ms. Washington?
Yes.
Mr. Bizzett?
Yes.
Ms. Bullock?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Motion carried. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
CTE local application, Mr. Thompson.
So good evening again. So tonight I'm going to present to you the CTE local application. This is our funding grant for CTE. Okay, we can move on. So what is the CTE local application? So first of all, it's the funding application for our CTE programs. It identifies the needs, priorities for CTE programs, and it ensures CTE programs adhere to legislation related to state and federal funding, and it identifies areas of focus for the upcoming school year. The components of the local application include performance data from the previous year indicators, the comprehensive local needs assessment, which we have finished up and finishing up right now, narratives, funding grants, and then of course the assurances at the end that you're going to follow with the grant. So I wanted to move to the most important piece tonight, which is our priorities that we have found through our CLNA and through our process that we want to focus on for the 22-23 year. Some of these have carried over through COVID because we didn't feel like we had gotten where we wanted to with each one of them. So, and there are a few new ones. So the first one is continuing to focus on the safety of our CTE facilities and labs. We want to continue that and ensure that our labs are as safe as can be for our students. We want to create a robust career development plan for each student in our starting out in middle schools into our high schools. Actively recruiting students from underrepresented and non-traditional areas. Our lesson design and delivery for our teachers. Credentialing, that is job-related credentialing, industry-related credentialing. We want to, when our students leave, we want to ensure that they have those credentials so that they can be successful. Advertising and marketing of our CTE programs. We feel like this is very important so everyone from our businesses to our students understand what is available, what they can have once they leave for post-secondary. Retention and recruitment of CTE teachers, building our advisory board capacity, which is really we've done very well this year with that. We're very excited about that, but we want to continue building our CTSOs. You may know these like FFA is a CTSO. We want to continue to build those organizations because what our students can do once they learn the skills, they'll go to competitions to practice these skills like Skills USA or FFA. And then lastly, we want to give all of our students work-based experiences. So once they finish a pathway, they have an internship or they have somewhere where they can go practice these skills. Then also in CTE, one of our focuses we want our middle schools to continue with our Cte Exploratory Labs. Every one of our middle schools will have exploratory labs in them now as of this year. These are robust labs where students get to explore multiple careers with hands-on in a hands-on fashion. It can be construction related, it can be engineering related, STEM related. It goes emergency management. We have multiple finance and marketing careers for our students, because what we want to see in our middle schools is our students explore there. Then when they get to high school, they have pathways that they want to move into, so that leads them to the career of their choice. And that's what we're very excited about. So the next slide will show you that what we really are focusing on tonight with the local application is that we can gain those dollars for state months of employment, which that's our 013 fund, our state funding 014, and our federal funding 017. So the superintendent recommends approval to pursue the funding through our Cte local application, and I will take any questions that you have at this time.
If there are no questions, I will entertain a motion to pass the CTE local application. Motion by Mr. Bizzett,
Second.
second by Ms. Bullock. All in favor, Ms. Washington,
Yes.
Mr. Bizzett? Yes. Ms. Bullock?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Field trips, Mr. Thompson.
So as we know, overnight and out-of-state field trips must have board approval, and this is board approval for April 4th, 2022. We have one overnight field trip. That is our Odyssey of the Mind for Rocky Mount High School. They are going to Western Carolina University on April the 1st. That's wrong. That should be 21st, April 21st, and come back on April the 22nd. And this will be an overnight trip. And the superintendent is recommending approval for this overnight trip for April 2022.
Any questions? I will entertain a motion to approve the field trip.
Move to approve.
Motion by Ms. Bullock,
Second.
second by excuse me. Motion by Dr. Washington, second by Ms. Bullock. All in favor, Dr. Washington?
Yes.
Mr. Bizzett?
Yes.
Ms. Bullock?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Without any further ado, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Dr. Washington,
Second.
second by S. Bullock. Motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. The next item and last item on the agenda will be the policy, Ms. Evelyn Bullock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to call the policy committee to order. And just to make sure we do have a quorum, Mr. Dunton. Here. Ms. Bullock.
Here.
Mr. Edwards left. I am here. Evelyn Bullock is here, so that gives us a quorum. The first item, we have 5 policies on our agenda that should not take long to go over. Policy number 3100, curriculum development. Who's doing those?
Ms. Bullock, this is Lindsay Smith. Are you doing that one?
Hey, Lindsay. No, I'm not. Miss Dancy Smith is. How are you?
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Lindsay, we had discussed that you would take curriculum development since it's a minor change. Is that what we're still doing?
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, sorry, that was my plan as well. I just wanted to make sure that we were on the same page. Yeah. So Madam Chair, the majority of these policies that are up for your consideration tonight have fairly minor changes. So I will take the few that are have these minor changes, including I believe 3410 and 3460. But we'll start with 3100, which you already have pulled up. And this is a change to, if you'll scroll down, yeah, there we go. I think the change on the version that's pulled up there on the screen is not showing. It should be, there it is, right there. So this is a change that has just simply been added, I think, to reflect the changes that the General Assembly enacted with respect to the Read to Achieve program. And so it just adds, curriculum must follow statewide standards and any other legally required resource. And so the legal reference at the end refers to the new the session law that was passed last year that incorporates changes to the statewide literacy and reading program. And so that is the only change for this policy.
There are questions on policy 3100? Okay, 3410, did you say, Lindsay?
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair. Yes. So 3410, let me make sure that we've got that one pulled up as well. And make sure that if you don't mind, making sure that the change is showing. So the only change here to this one is the addition of the word interventions here under section A. And again, I believe if you look at the legal references at the end, this is again a reference to the changes that were made by the new session law regarding the Read to Achieve program as well.
Are there questions for policy 3410?
No.
And the next one that you mentioned, Lindsay, was 3460. What was the other one you said? There were three for you, right?
Yes, I apologize. Yeah, yes. So the I believe 3460 is the next one that I was going to handle. Is that right?
Yes.
That's graduation requirement.
Yes, Madam Chair. So this one, again, if you'll scroll down there to section A. So again, this is a new addition based on some edits to the Board of Education policies regarding the curriculum. And so again, this is the only edit to this particular policy has to do with if you'll just scroll up a little bit. Is in this section A, the addition of completing future ready course of study prior to grade 9. And then there are some edits in the footnotes to this policy as well, Madam Chair and committee. If you'll scroll down a little bit, and I can show you an example of these. So if you'll see here in the footnote, down here at the bottom, there are references to the State Board of Education policies that make a few minor changes regarding some of the curriculum and the required courses for graduation. So if you'll scroll down, there are a couple more changes in other footnotes that are basically aligned with that change that we just looked at, but those are the only changes for this policy.
Okay, are there questions on 3460 graduation requirements?
No.
And then we'll go back to 3420. Student promotion and accountability. Who's doing that?
Yes, and I think that, yes, exactly, Ms. Johnson-Hostler, this one.
Okay. The substantive changes to policy 3420 are all under section E, and those updates address the change to the Read to Achieve law as well. And they are to include all of the literacy interventions that will be offered to students who are experiencing difficulty in reading. That includes the reading camps, the individual reading plans, access to the Digital Children's Literacy Initiative, as well as the District Literacy Intervention Plan. So number one is just the reading camp. That's in there. The new section is section number 2, and they changed some of the language on the reading camp just to be more general to align with the policy. The new section, individual reading plans, starting next school year, any child who is experiencing K-3 difficulty in reading must have an individual reading plan that can be based on their BOY diagnostic assessment or the MOY diagnostic assessment. The third thing under there is the Digital Children's Reading Initiative. That is from DPI. That is a website that has parent resources. It must be posted on our district website prominently. And it also, schools have to offer those activities in print for families that don't have access to the digital version. And the fourth thing was approval of the literacy intervention plan. Every PSU must submit a district-wide literacy intervention plan to DPI yearly, and our funding for our reading camp will be tied to approval of this plan. We actually have submitted the first draft of our plan for next year this March, and we'll get feedback from it from DPI in May. The rest of the changes in this policy, there is a minor change to the wording in that section. And then down, if you keep on scrolling, there's changed the word reading to literacy and the words from not proficient to them not demonstrating proficiency. And then at the end, there is a change to the legal references and also the resource section.
Other question?
Just a few,
Right.
or just one, I guess. Are we currently doing some of these things? And if not, are there hurdles in being able to implement them? Because I think as you referenced, one of the plan for literacy interventions is due March 1st. So
We've done it. Yes, we have. We are currently doing those things. And really the the district literacy intervention plan was just a way for us to spell out everything we do for our students in their core instruction, any supplemental, any interventions that they receive in the area of literacy. So we just had to put that all in a template that was given to us by DPI.
Okay. How about providing the information for the parents on the website, and then I guess enacting these other pieces that we currently.
The Children's Digital Literacy Initiative is new from DPI, so we will put a link to that on our website, but we've shared it with principals so that they know now that it's live, so that they can go ahead and share some of those resources with parents, but that's just a matter of sharing it with them.
So it's new.
Pretty new, but doesn't really take law until next year, but we've gotten a head start on some of it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there other questions? Okay, then our last policy for us tonight is policy 8310, annual independent audit. Ms. Whitman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that I'm going to handle this one unless you have. Yep, that's fine. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, the changes here is there in the first paragraph in the auditor's contract, we have to make sure that it complies with the requirements of the 20 NCAC 03.0502C. And then there's an addition, paragraph 3, the board will receive the report and opinion of the auditor and will arrange for the auditor to present to the board the audited financial statements, compliance reports, if any, and other information as specified in the audit contract. The presentation must be in an official meeting in open session held as soon as the audited financial statements are available, but no later than 45 days after the submission of the audit report to the Secretary of the Local Government Commission. And paragraph 4 is in addition, if required by 20 NCAC 03.0508, the board will submit a response to the auditor's findings, recommendations, and fiscal matters to the Secretary of the Local Government Commission pursuant to the rule within 60 days of the auditor's presentation to the board. And then it's referenced in the legal references here also.
Are there questions? All right, then, the chair will entertain a motion, that we recommend to the full board, approval for first read policy 3100, 3410, 3420, 3460, and 8310, and have it lay on the table for 30 days. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded, that we recommend to the full board approval for first read for policies listed previously. Are there any questions?
Nothing here to not wait 30 days on, is there?
No, nothing here needs to be waived.
All those in favor, and I do a roll call, Mr. Dutton,
Yes.
Ms. Bullock,
Yes.
and Ms. Bullock is yes. Motion carried. That's all we have on the policy committee. Are there any comments or questions we need to hear? If not, I will declare the meeting adjourned.
Thank you, Ms. Bullock. Appreciate that. All the committee members. With nothing else to hold this board's attention, I say this committee service is over. Have a good evening.
Huh? Sound like you